Hello, and welcome to another episode of Latina Life with Jen and Milena. Today, we are going to be talking to a super Latina who is just close to my heart and is wonderful, the brilliant co host of mine, Milena Monrroy. And today's episode is going to be a bit personal because we're actually going to be discussing a terrifying incident that happened to Milena about 2 years ago in 2023. She's a survivor of an armed robbery, and it's taken us a while to feel a little bit comfortable to talk about this. And we've decided, it's finally time, and she's finally ready to share her story and what she learned, from it with everybody here. So, Milena, thank you so
Of
much for
course.
you know being open. And I know I want to treat it sensitively, so if I'm, a question isn't correct, please let me know.
Of course. No, absolutely.
But let's go back to that incident 2 years ago because I
Hmm.
remember for me, I received a phone call. I received a
Hmm.
phone call from your daughter.
Hmm.
And she was obviously very upset and she told me what happened. And of course, and in there I worked, at the TV show that I work at over at Access, and they were very wonderful. I left to go meet with you
Hmm.
and come to you and help as much as I can.
Hmm.
So, if you could just tell us what happened that morning in 2023. I think it was January, and you were just
Yes.
coming back home.
Hmm. It was. It was a Tuesday in the morning, and we had a holiday. I believe it was President's Day. It was one of these holidays that we had Monday off. And because it was the beginning of the year, my whole like mindset was wake up early, go work out, start the new year right. That's what I had been doing the prior weeks. So I was going to the gym and, it was just a very early morning and it was like any other morning. Nothing was different. Nothing was out of strange and,
Hmm.
out of the ordinary. And I just remember turning um, to my street and the sun was shining because it had rained that weekend and thanking God for just, the day and having another day. I remember that very clearly. And get home, getting ready for work, you leave all your stuff in your car. There's certain things that you do just as a normal human being, right? Like you leave
Hmm.
stuff in the car, you just are like, oh, I'm not going to take it upstairs, blah, blah, blah. So, like, you have things pre packed with, which for me was like my work stuff, whatever I was going to take for the day to work. And one of the things that I remember was I had a gift that you had given me that Christmas. I had that in my bag, which was a beautiful purse, like a wallet kind of thing, um, that I
Hmm.
had in there. And I just had things that I shouldn't have had in my car. And it was just unnecessary for me to have all these things. And I
Hmm.
did, though. And I, trying to get ready for work. My daughter was with me at the time. She lived with me during then. So it was like rush, 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 rush. And my car was facing my washer and dryer, which I don't do anymore. And I have a closed garage just so people understand. Um, and I'm in my vehicle,
Hmm.
getting ready to start the day. And as I'm putting on my seatbelt, I see a body in my rearview mirror. And what is crazy is that, you know, no one, my neighbors, nobody has ever like just randomly walked into my home, because if you
Right.
walk into my garage, you're walking into my home.
Hmm.
Um, and nobody had ever been so brazen. They wait out in the driveway, whatever. And I knew immediately something was wrong just because the body was getting closer and the way the body was like walking towards me, like creepy style, in a very creepy way. And my daughter's car was parked right next to mine. And next thing I knew, it happened so fast. I look up and he has a gun to my window. And I just was like, oh shit, like this is a robbery. And he like manhandled me out of the car. He was yelling. All I thought about really was my daughter and my dog, because I'm like, if they come downstairs,
Mm,
to the garage and they hear or see,
mhm.
what's the first thing you do? You scream. You know what I
Right.
mean? You scream. Like,
Mhm,
I just think that
mhm,
that's anybody's first thing. So, and then what happens? He gets nervous and he shoots her. And
mhm.
so, you never know what you're going to do in those in moments. And I hadn't really, I was trying to process. I had my hands up. I just was like, oh my God. And, being manhandled by this man who I don't know, who has the gun to my head and who is like yelling at me to give him stuff. You're just like, okay, stay calm, stay calm. All I could think was just to stay calm.
Mm,
But as I look at him, he's this young Latino guy, and I was so angry. I was just like, are you for real? And I think even said that, like, are you serious? Like,
mhm.
what? You know what I mean? Like, I just was so angry that he was doing this, not just to
Yeah.
me, but that this is what he has chosen to do, right? For his life, because I don't think it
Mhm.
was his first time, and then as I'm walking, I make a very quick decision that instead of walking towards more inside my home, I decided to walk towards my driveway so that I could be out, because if he were to shoot me,
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
my driveway so that I could be out, because if he were to shoot me, at least somebody walking by will see me. You know what I mean? Like, or
Mhm,
see my
mhm.
garage. Like, I don't know. I just thought of all these things. And so I had my hands up. He just kept yelling at me and telling me he was going to shoot me in the face. And
Ugh.
he continued with the profanities as he's trying to grab everything that he possibly can. And at this point, I knew that he wasn't running. I knew that there was somebody else there, because there was a
Mm,
car that was on the actual street. So I'm like, okay, so this is like a two-person situation.
mhm.
And the last thing I was going to do was try to hit him, or, you know what I mean, run or
Right.
whatever, because I just was like, I don't want my daughter to come down here. And I literally just looked at him and I was like, take whatever you want, just take whatever you want. I thought he was going to take the car, but he didn't. Um, but he took everything else, which was fine, even though I was mad. I was just like
Mhm,
seething, but I was
mhm.
also like, it felt like forever, but I know that it wasn't, for like, it did not take, it was quick. And nobody that morning, usually I have a lot of neighbors who wake up early, walk their dogs, like that's just the usual in my neighborhood. Not a soul, not a soul. Like, I
Ugh.
just couldn't even believe it. I just was like, somebody please look out your window, please. And nothing. And so, he's holding the gun to my face as he's getting close to me so that he could run with all my stuff, as the other guy is like waiting with the car running, so that they could jump in and take everything. They took all of my phones, because I had two phones for work or whatever. So I just was like, what am I going to do? As far as like, do I scream the minute he like, I don't know. I just was trying to think of like my exit plan.
Mhm.
And so as I'm standing there and he's walking away, I knew we were far enough away from each other, even though he's still looking at me holding the gun. I knew that I could be able to book it back into my garage and like close the garage door, get to that
Mhm.
button to close it. And
Right.
finally I did, and I just like booked it, and I was screaming. I was screaming so loud that my daughter was just like, what in the world? And I just was like, give me your phone, give me your phone. I just wanted the phone, and I don't even know what I said. And I ran outside and I told her to stay inside. and I'm on with 911, and then everybody comes, and then it's just complete chaos after that, because I think once I was with the police, Kenna started calling you, and
Yeah.
like people needed to know, and we work for the same company, so it was like things needed to be distributed because, at this point, there was no way that I was going to show up to work or anything. I just was like, what happens next, right? Because like, what
Yeah.
happens? I've never been in this situation. And
Hmm.
it was, I live near schools, and so they put the whole thing on lockdown. I will say the response was so fast, so quick. I so appreciate the city for doing that, because I have heard other stories from other victims who don't get that same response, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I was very lucky that I did. I mean, undercovers, helicopters, you name it, they were, I feel like they just like came down. And, I'm trying to get my bearings together. I'm trying to think of what had just happened. And, as the process goes, you repeat the story so many times within the day to multiple people, from detectives to policemen to, um, the people that are still trying to find them, to the other. It's just consistent throughout that day. And then you have to think of calling banks, calling insurance, calling, all the things, because they have all your information. And all I could think about was like, he has my ID, he has my keys, he has, so like you immediately have to think of like changing the locks, putting on cameras, like will they come back? Like it's just nonstop in the brain. But at the end of the day, I just was like, okay, I'm alive, right? I'm alive, and thank God for you. Thank God for the people that showed up for me that day, that helped me. Because, once your credit cards are all taken, I had a friend who gave me cash so I could pay for whatever we needed that day in cash. And just, it was just chaos, having to think of like what to do. And it's not like somebody's going to be like, well, this is now what you have to do. Nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you that. So, as you came during the chaos, and
Yeah.
it's just trying to, who do I call? Who do I have to notify? Like, there's no handbook of what to do next and how to protect yourself. So
Hmm.
I think that's one of
Exactly.
the reasons why, you felt too that I should share, because people don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Like none of my friends knew what to do, because it's not like I have anybody that has actually been through this situation. So
Right.
you guys were there to support me and to help me and to sort of help me navigate how to do it, but like nobody had like a blueprint for me.
Hmm. It's so true. Like so many people that, go through this. And I mean, I was just shocked, horrified, a lot of angry too.
Mhm.
I think, the one thing that you hit upon and we touched about it was like, the perpetrator who did the
Mhm.
person who did this, it had to be a Latino, right?
Mhm.
And for
Mhm.
anybody out there who says, well, you don't know what his circumstances are, right? Because there's groups of people that think that way. Well, you don't know
Right.
what his circumstances are. And listen, I get it. We have all been through challenging times in our lives. Not everybody
Mhm.
is born with a silver spoon in their mouths. I mean, you and I know we have worked hard to get to where we're
Mhm.
at. We know
Mhm.
there's other people that maybe don't have it as easy as we do too, but you still make the right choice.
Mhm.
That doesn't give you the leeway to do something like this, to violate somebody like this,
Mhm.
to hurt someone like this. I
Mhm.
mean, in the most horrible ways, it just doesn't. So for anybody out there, I mean,
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
in the most horrible ways, it just doesn't. So for anybody out there, I mean, I will argue with you down to the mat 100%. Like,
Mhm.
sorry,
Mhm.
I can't. Like, I can't be sympathetic to that person who just almost like took away someone who is special to me.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I feel the community just needs to step up, you know,
Mhm.
the community overall too, because like you said, like you were hoping that someone would like be on the lookout or looking out. And I know everyone's busy. I get it. I'm probably the nosy neighbor, like, here in
Hmm.
our neighborhood where I'm always like, oh, whose car is that? Oh, someone's headlights are on. Let me text that person. But it's like we need to be in each other's business. We do, because
Yes.
even as we know with like the wildfires that just happened, we got to help each other out because the city's
Right.
not going to be there to help us all out. So we have to be there to help each
Yes.
other.
I
And
completely agree.
yeah, and so that leads me to, the next question. Just, as a Latina, knowing that this was a Latino that did this to you, like how does that make you feel?
Oh, I was so angry. Like, I wanted to yell at him and I wanted to be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Only because, like, I could tell that it wasn't his first time. I
Hmm.
and as the process, this took like over a year. Like, this was not an easy, like, that was it. I didn't have to deal with it. I had to deal with it for almost like the full 2 years. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it was a long process, and some people go through it for a much longer time. I mean, I was one of the lucky ones. But as I found out more information about him, the more angry I got. Like, the
Yeah,
more angry I was. And I was just like, because when you start finding out their background, what they've been doing, how they've been doing, and like who they've terrorized, right? Because that's what it is. Like, it's terror. Like, you can't sleep, you can't think straight. I didn't trust anybody. I was just, my mind was nonstop. It was horrific in the sense of, like, I was so scared because I couldn't trust anybody. I was like, I couldn't trust being in my home. I couldn't trust going outside because I thought, was I being watched? Was I being like, did he follow me? How did I not notice? All these things, because one of the first things the police told me is, this is common. They start robbing people first thing in the morning. They look out, they have car, you know what I mean? So it was like a whole, this was their job, right? This was their job. This is what they do. These gangs, or I don't know, whatever it is, that they told me they were in a gang. So they do this. They look out for neighborhoods. You know, they find people, they try to find times. That's why they do it so early in the morning in certain areas. Like, it's just horrible. So the more that I found out about him, and that he was on drugs, and that he you know also had like an attempted murder on his rap, like that, I was even more mad. So the anger just sort of built
yeah,
and built
yeah.
and built. But because of the resources that I had, I was very lucky to get therapy. And because I knew that I couldn't do it alone, I knew that I had to like talk about it. And as much as I love my friends, they just, I didn't want to terrorize other people. Like, don't go out, don't do this, don't do, you know what I mean? Like, I needed an outlet. And, we work for a great company who offers these things. And so, you know,
Hmm.
I think like within 3 days, I was able to get a therapist, or a psychiatrist to help me sleep and to help me process what had happened. But has my life changed? 1000%. I will never be the person that I was.
So that leads to an important question. I know it's also a topic, in our community too, therapy. Um, why is that something that you suggest anyone who's gone through this kind of, incident, event in their life? Why is that something that they should take seriously and consider doing?
Because when you go through something like this, your mind shifts, right? And for me, my mind shifted to, I was, not only did I have fear, and I was not living my life the way I normally do. Um I also judge people. Like, I
Hmm.
judge people with the way that they look, and I'm that
Hmm.
person now. I
Hmm.
also was considering, I've never had guns. I've always been anti guns. But when this happened to me, I
Mhm.
understood immediately why people get guns. So my
Mhm.
mind shifted and I really considered getting a gun again. But I talked all this through with a specialist, with a team of
Mhm.
people, because I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. And, they were like, okay, well, you have to understand that if you get a gun not to have a gun. You get a gun to protect yourself, and you have to ask yourself, am I
Mhm.
okay killing someone? Because that's really what
Mhm.
the gun is there. You know what I mean? So
Right,
there were
right.
all these things that I had to consider, and it wasn't just 1 week again. I mean, I'm still in therapy. I'm still
Mhm.
in therapy. I still see my psychiatrist. So
Mhm.
again, I think it's very helpful because you go through stages, right?
Yeah.
And you need someone to help you process this. And another thing I had to do was I took medication. I was on Prozac. I had to sleep,
Mhm.
I had to, because I would wake up and I would look out the windows and I would,
Mhm.
you know, I couldn't go to work. It just was really
Yeah.
debilitating in that
Yeah, well,
sense. And therapy helped
understandably.
me.
Yeah, understandably so. I mean, this person you're violated, you
Hmm.
don't feel safe. You don't. It definitely crumbles that foundation that you have. So, what can friends and family do to support
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
friends and family do to support someone who's gone through an event like that? Because I know for myself, it's like, what can I do? I felt
Right.
like I felt helpless. I felt like, let me just be there, with you. Let me just, try to show up and help you with other things. But I mean, and of course, we don't want to make it about me, but you guys, anyone who goes through this needs a strong support system. So, what would you suggest? Like, what was most helpful for you?
I think, what was really helpful was that you guys all showed up, but not just for one day. Like you continuously asked, um, you know, what you could do. But I also think that what was important is you understood that the way that I was going to be moving forward was going to be differently, and everybody was okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's go somewhere where there's a lot of people, or, let me go to
Hmm.
your house, or,
Hmm.
let's don't be alone, walking me to my car and making sure that, like, though, that I was always protected. I felt everybody in my tribe, everybody who was in my life was very they understood that, like, I just wasn't going to be the same. And I think that was very, very helpful, was that everybody adjusted to the way I needed to do things during that time.
Right. And how we should keep in mind, too, obviously, your daughter is very close to you and very special, and you love her more than anything in
Hmm.
the entire world. So it was just as important for us to show up for her, too, as much as we
Correct.
could.
Yes.
So
Yes.
people should definitely keep family members in mind as well, because they're going through it as well.
Yes. Yes, because we still had to, you know, live in this way, and I didn't want to. Another thing therapy helped me was I did not want to control her. Right? I didn't, and my therapist continuously said she has to live her life. You cannot control her and keep her out of, like, she can't live the way you're living, right? Like, she couldn't
Oh,
stop working. She
interesting.
couldn't stop
Mhm.
going to school. She couldn't be a hermit the way I became a hermit, because I, didn't go back to work for 6 months. So I really, like, became a hermit, and therapy helped me not impose that on her. Like, we
It's
changed the way
important.
we did things. Yeah, where we were like, we shared each other's location just so that I could feel better,
Hmm.
and I was,
Yeah.
you know, but I was like, don't come late. Don't go do
Right.
this late. Don't, you know what I mean? I was sort of like a psychopath, but understandably
No, you're a
so.
mom.
I
You're a
know, but
mom.
understandably so. Like, that was one of the main reasons why I also had therapy, because they were like, don't do that to her.
Right. And all the young Latinas out there who have moms, just understand we are not trying to micromanage. It's for peace of mind. That's it, for
Correct.
peace of mind. And, your safety too, in
Hmm.
regards to sharing the location, calling when you arrive somewhere. It's for your safety. It's just part of this world,
Yeah.
you know. So so that's truly important. What are the what could you share with us, like some of the things that you have taken away from this experience that you now do that you haven't done, that you didn't do before, you know?
So one of the things that, gosh, so I am very vigilant. I obviously look around now. I pay attention to the streets. I pay attention where I park. I pay attention to certain things. Like, I will not take any kind of risk in the sense of like safety, especially when I'm out in the city and stuff, because obviously here in Los Angeles it's happened a lot where there was a lot of, just
Mhm.
crime.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I always take a look. I always just am looking around. Another thing is, I don't really go out and wear stuff that's of any value, really, if I don't need to. Like before, I would, you know, have like my Gucci purse and my this and that, and like and I just, that's so unnecessary. I don't need any of
Yeah.
that because
Yeah.
unless, listen, do we like nice stuff? Absolutely.
Mhm. Of
But
course.
um you also make yourself like a target in a sense, right? So
Mhm.
um I don't really do those things anymore, especially like if I'm going to work, I'm going to work. Like, I don't need to take anything nice and things like that. I
Right.
just, again, I just, my movements are very different in how I do things. I don't even park my car the same way. Now I look out into the
Mhm.
street. I make sure that, like, if I ever, God forbid, like, there's a getaway plan, like, there's just, I have cameras everywhere. Um
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I just always thought that my home was going to be like my safe haven. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that is just not the case. So I have to protect it now more than ever. And that's what I have done. So I just am definitely, because you always think it's not going to happen to me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
immediately after this, I went and I told everybody, just be careful, watch out, look around. This is something that they say that is happening all the time. This is what they do. This is like, it's not just them. It's like they work in groups and throughout different communities,
Mhm.
which we've seen, and so that's one of the other things that really has changed in my life. Like, I'm very aware now of what's going on in the community, and I try to see like what's happening. And I think that's another thing. You have to be part of your community. You have to be part of, knowing what's going on.
Absolutely. And if anyone should find themselves in this horrible situation or moment like you did, to keep their head. I admired how you held yourself up throughout the whole thing, listening to your entire story, because I just don't know if I would have had that strength or the courage to be so level headed. And because you were very level headed, you were very calm. I don't, but I don't know if I would have had that honestly.
Right.
I mean, I do, but that was really the key to you surviving that.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
But that was really the key to you surviving that incident.
Right. I think that if I would have fought back, because I know a lot of people do,
Yeah.
that's their
Mhm.
instinct. But that just really wasn't my instinct at that moment. And I'm a believer in a higher being, and I just feel like that was something that, you know, I was given at that moment to just get out of that situation as quickly as I possibly can. Because I know for some, that's really sometimes not the outcome,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
People are on drugs or people on this, and he was on heroin, this guy. When again, the more that I went through the process and I found out more information, I found out more things about him,
Yeah.
and all of those things. So yeah, he wasn't in his right mind. I mean, who does something like that, right? So
Mhm. It's
I
true.
wasn't
It's true.
surprised.
So now, we know you shared your story. So anyone else
Hmm.
who would, any of our viewers or fans or friends, family who would like to hear a little bit more about the process and what happens next,
Hmm.
um, can listen to a little bit more to your story on this other podcast that you shared it with. Tell us about that podcast.
Yes. So what happens next is survivor centered true crime podcast, and basically, people. It's a place to listen, and people find different resources because unfortunately crime takes place everywhere, right? So depending on where you live, there's different resources, and you just sort of figure out and find out how this person these people go through what they went through, and they share how their system works in their community.
Got it. And then too, and just confirming it's What Came Next, and it's
Hmm.
hosted by, is it Amy Chesler?
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
Okay. And I'm seeing she's an award-winning writer. She's a victim advocate, and herself, she is a true crime survivor as well. So
correct.
it's a really great podcast. And it just kind of it brings you into everyone's stories and takes you through the process. So I think the more we talk about it, I think we hopefully have a more caring community, people that can show more empathy, but also can help people that
Yes,
are going through the process like that. So be sure to also check out that podcast. Well, Milena, I love you so much.
I love you
Thank you
too,
so much
sister.
for seriously. That was a horrible day for you,
Hmm.
for us, for all of us. So I'm
For
just
us,
glad.
because didn't it affected all of us? And this is one of the things that I need to reiterate is I felt like once this happened, you start thinking, oh my God, right, Jen? Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
you felt, but like Kenna's like, I don't feel safe. And like, Lawrence and other of my friends, they were like, okay, God, we really have to be more aware. And like, because it does change not just your life, the victim's life, but so many other people's lives, right? It becomes like, oh my God, we're all entrenched in this. My neighbors were like, everybody. It's just this affected everybody. It's
Oh,
in this,
abs.
these
Yeah.
people don't realize it. And I feel like it affected you too, because you were probably like, oh my God, like,
Oh, absolutely. You talk about your mind shifting, right? And even
mm-hmm,
as friends or family who aren't there, it's your first instinct is be there, just go, right? You
mm-hmm,
drop everything, you just go. And that's what we did. Go. Okay. And then I see you like in person and we're like, okay. And then you were hearing like everything and you're just in the process. And this is just me. I'm not even like, it wasn't me that went through it. It's me going through
mm-hmm,
it through your eyes and what I'm hearing. And then I get home and I start telling my husband, Adam, and then your mind shifts for a second because then you realize it could have been so different. And then that's when you start
mm-hmm,
crying. That's when you start
mm-hmm,
crying because I cried. I still get
mm-hmm,
upset about it. And I'm not going
mm-hmm.
through, but I could have lost you. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
have to shift your mind. So, and I'm not that person. And so for all the
Mm-hmm,
people like you and everybody else who's out there, like our hearts go out to you because that is so traumatizing and it is
mm-hmm.
so hard sometimes for some people to come back from.
Yes.
But you have that power to come back from it, as you said, by
Mm-hmm,
using these tools and by reaching out for help. And importantly, by talking to someone, a
mm-hmm.
therapist, which I know sometimes therapy is a hot topic, in our community. And, not it's a tough thing to talk about and to accept
Right.
sometimes, right?
Yeah, but
But
it's helpful, and I just want people to know that even if like you don't have those resources, I do know that um depending on where you live, they will offer that through your community. But again, it's just things that you do have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own um fighter for yourself. So it's not going to be all brought to you, but there's no handbook. There's no like No one's going to call you and tell you this is what you do next. That's not what they do. But that's why these platforms are out there, because I just want people to know that you have to be your own advocate. You have to ask questions, you got to do the research, you got to do the work, but the payoff is better, because if you could get therapy and you can find resources like that, you can overcome those things, something like this.
Important for everybody to know. And also important is just take care of each other, look out for each other. Do the right thing, people.
Hmm.
Like, please, everyone's got to do the right thing.
Hmm.
So, um, Milena, I love you. I love you so
Love you
much. Thank
too.
you. Thank you so much for sharing your story again with me, but then, with all of our listeners and our friends. And to everybody out there, continue listening to Latina Life with Jen and Milena across all of your podcast, platforms, Spotify, Heart, Apple. We're going to be sharing some really in-depth stories with some really key, strong takeaways that we hope that you can use in your life. And until then, stay safe. Look out for each other. Besos y abrazos to all of our primas, our hermanas, amigas. Until the next time. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai